Hello everyone, my name is Mara Polgovsky and my talk is entitled Minuhin and E.A.T, The Art and Politics of Relation. Marta Minuhin counts among the few women who directly participated in experiments in art and technology, and notably is the only Latin American. Her sensorially immersive Minuphone emerged from the collaboration between Minuhin and engineer Peter Bjorn, despite the latter rarely receiving any credit for the piece. An environment for one person. The Minuphone functioned by activating a series of sensorial stimuli when the telephone was in use, including wind blowing directly into the face of the caller, green smoke entering the cabin, and a lighting system regulated by the caller's voice. The piece was originally exhibited in the Hayward White Gallery in New York and has been reconstructed several times. However, despite Minuphone's relatively long afterlife, Minuhin often casts this experience in a negative light. In a 2010 interview with Ana Longoni and Fernanda Carvajal, she said, "Billy Kluver never liked me. That circle was very sexist, and it was really strange for a woman, all the more so a South American one, to get involved in art and technology. He could have given me a lot of money to help me with the booth, but all he did was put me in contact with Per," end quote. Minuhin goes on to describe Bjorn as a mad scientist who liked helping artists. But she also recognizes that the purpose of E.A.T was precisely to generate these kinds of relationships. Minuhin's frank but also highly dismissive account of her experience with E.A.T reveals often forgotten cultural and gender tensions within the loosely defined networks of experimental art in 1960s United States. My exploration of the E.A.T files at the Getty Research Institute also suggests a certain contradiction in Minuhin's own devaluing of E.A.T's relational commitment, as being somehow disingenuous and indeed a second-class form of support compared to what direct funding of her project would have meant. Crucially, Minuhin's lesser-known second project supported by E.A.T was a social and indeed relational initiative that she named Minucode. The exhibition's press release reads, "Marta Minuhin announces her new project, the Minucode, to be presented in the Art Gallery of the Center for Inter-American Relations. Quote, the main elements upon which the accompanying project is based, says Ms. Minuhin, consists of various groups of social environments shown as systems which function independently of one another and which meet only in the neutral field of art." Minuphone unfolded as 4 cocktail parties, where businessmen, politicians, people from the world of fashion and artists, all self-appointed via recruitment surveys published in main newspapers, were invited to mingle and interact with each other and with the environment through electronic media. Their interactions were recorded in 16mm film and weeks later projected to the same participants, this time using the walls of the gallery as supports for this exercise of self-reflexive self and collective observation. However, the temporal proximity between the Minuphone and the Minucode, together with the direct mention of E.A.T's support in Minucode's documents, invites further discussion on the links and parallels between both relational initiatives, i.e. E.A.T and Minucode. At the origin of E.A.T is arguably first the question of what happens when an artist talks to a scientist, and then the desire to make this exchange possible. Minucode poses similar questions with regard to possible and impossible relationships between different fields of expertise, and equally contributes to generating the conditions for certain interactions to take place, possibly as a consequence of her own not-so-positive experience with E.A.T, or possibly not. Minuhin added to her piece, the Minucode, a critical reflection on how interactions can often fail and are heavily shaped by environments, technologies, and issues of class, gender, and cultural background. As she wrote in her notes for the Minucode press release, quote, the fact that we can see a politician talking to an artist in a party does not mean that in reality a relationship exists between them. The frames in which each group develop their activities are rigorous, and since their interests are different, they only mix in an apparent or illusory way. The so-called real moment of Minuchin's Minucodes, i.e. the moment when the participants are invited to observe themselves in their interactions, is arguably the point at which this illusion is put to the test. A sort of Platonic release from the cave, paradoxically generated not through walking away from projected shadows, but through the immersive observation of both light and shadow. One may wonder whether E.A.T. had a similar moment of self-reflexivity. My own imagining of this moment is a trip of the Minuphone from New York to Buenos Aires. As the cabin reached the South American country, all its functions failed for the simple fact of having to adapt it to a new voltage. And the cabin thus lay abandoned for years. This revealed the difficulties of universalizing the E.A.T. experience and the limits of collaboration, not only due to the differences in expertise, but also due to issues of class, gender, and most notably, the conflicting temporalities of art and too easily obsolete technologies. Thank you very much.